"That craft we saw when I first arrived," he asked Hatcher. "What was it?" They were eating dinner, just the two of them, in a canteen the size of a warehouse. Lobster and filet mignon, flown in from Vegas. "You want to know if it was a flying saucer," Hatcher clarified. Alan had been avoiding the term, even in his own mind. It was too loaded with impossible things, with craziness and zealotry. The problem was that the term fit all too well. The craft had been roughly saucer-shaped, 20 feet across, and windowless. It was bare metal, like brushed nickel or aluminum, and showed no lights except the large central one on the underside, which seemed to be its source of propulsion. The disk bulged upwards in the middle, but was otherwise unmarked, so it was impossible to be sure if it was rotating or not. And it was flying, though not in any way Alan could recognize or make sense of. He said nothing, pretending to be too busy chewing to answer directly, though Hatcher, who recognized the moment for what it was, just smiled. "Yes," he said simply. "It was a flying saucer." "So that means it's—" He reached for a word, one perhaps even more insane than flying saucer. "Alien?" he said at last. Alan wasn't sure what he had expected from Hatcher, but the CIA man's laugh, which in other circumstances might have been scornfully dismissive, came as a welcome relief. "Made in the USA," he said, "by people like you and me." "But how?" said Alan. "I've been in aviation all my adult life, and I've never even heard of anything that looked or moved like that." Hatcher grinned. "Because it's secret, Alan." He didn't say it, but dumbass was implied. "Okay," said Alan. "Why?" "It's how we keep our edge," said Hatcher. "And this is a test facility, the R&D section here, a subdivision of a major commercial aerospace manufacturer, whose sole client is the U.S. government, is called Possum Plant. Ask me why." "Why?" "Because they are really good at playing dead when people get too close. These are secret machines, Alan, but they are ours. So why not show the world we have them, and stop any potential enemies in their tracks?" "Like I said," answered Hatcher, spearing a hunk of steak with his fork, "we are a test facility. You know how long it took to get the U-2 operational? Or the Blackbird? Wouldn't make sense to show our hand to the world before we had everything in working order, would it?" "But I saw one of these things in Afghanistan," said Alan. "That's why I'm here. You took a chance on me because I'd already seen one. And because you're a damn fine pilot," said Hatcher. "But my point," Alan pressed on, refusing to be deflected by the compliment, "is that one of those ships showed up and interfered with my mission, right?" Hatcher considered whether or not to answer this before nodding. "It would seem so," he said. "So someone else has, whatever the hell those ships are, yeah? Someone other than the ordinary people of the USA who built the one I saw last week." "We're entering classified territory again," said Hatcher, putting down his knife and fork. "You're telling me a bunch of Afghan insurgents have access to aviation technology so advanced that our own country doesn't know it exists?" "Of course not," said Hatcher. "So?" "So think it through." Alan frowned. "Someone else is supplying them, or interceding on their behalf?" Hatcher didn't deny it, returning his gaze to his plate and continuing his meal in silence. "But who would have that kind of tech?" Hatcher said nothing. "They would also have an interest in either destabilizing the region," Alan continued, thinking aloud, "or of undermining U.S. interests in the area." Still, Hatcher said nothing. "And the technology the ground team at Safed Co. wanted to recover was connected to the development of these same craft, or you wouldn't have brought Murad out here with me." "Which means we're in some kind of secret arms race." At last, Hatcher spoke. "You haven't figured out who we're dealing with, but you've answered your first question. Which was, why are we keeping the program secret? Because we aren't the only ones involved. Secrecy, like information, is currency. It's power, and it has to be protected at all costs. All arms races are secret, until they're not. Alan digested this. The Russians, he said. It has to be. Or the Chinese. You have room for dessert? Said Hatcher, as if they'd been discussing the weather. The chef does an excellent creme brulee. Alan opened his mouth to say more, but the CIA man raised one index finger, eyes on his plate. The conversation was over.